This morning's scripture comes from the book of Matthew, chapter 7, verses 1 through 14. That's Matthew, chapter 7, verses 1 through 14. If you do not have a Bible with you this morning, you can find it in the Red Pew Bible in front of you on page 854. That's Matthew 7, 1 through 14. And it reads, "Judge not that you be not judged. For with the judgment you pronounce you will be judged, and with the measure you use it will be measured to you. Why do you see the speck that is in your brother's eye, but do not notice the log that is in your own eye? Or how can you say to your brother, 'Let me take the speck out of your eye,' when there is the log in your own eye? You hypocrite, first take the log out of your own eye, and then you will see clearly to take the speck out of your brother's eye. Do not give dogs what is holy, and do not throw your pearls before pigs, lest they trample them underfoot and turn to attack you. Ask and it will be given to you, seek and you will find, knock and it will be opened to you. For everyone who asks receives, and the one who seeks finds, and to the one who knocks it will be opened. Or which one of you, if his son asks him for bread, will give him a stone, or if he asks him for a fish, will give him a serpent? If you then, who are evil, know how to give good gifts to your children, how much more will your Father who is in heaven give good things to those that ask him? So whatever you wish that others would do to you, do also to them, for this is the law and the prophets. Enter by the narrow gate, for the gate is wide, and the way is easy that leads to the destruction, and those who enter by it are many. For the gate is narrow, and the way is hard that leads to life, and those who find it are few."
By the way, if you happen to come in after the opening this morning, take one of the cards that's in the songbook rack, and if you like 10 o'clock, put yes. If you like 9 o'clock, put no. And if you would like to come at 9:30 in the morning, put an X. Then just leave it on the pew, and it will be collected. Sorry about that, but we want to make sure that everyone gets an opportunity to give their desires here. As we do so, we think about what happens in the Sermon on the Mount, and I hope you follow the reading and have your Bible open, chapter 7, Matthew, because in this, I want you to think about, who do you know that's really generous? A generous person. So, sometimes we see someone and we say, he or she is so generous. Often we're talking about money when we think about generosity. But Jesus, in Matthew chapter 7, is giving us a different idea about being generous. And so bear with me as we get into this and think about it. This Sermon on the Mount, Jesus sitting up there on the mount, and everyone is gathered around him, and he's talking to them about so many different things. Remember, he started off with the Beatitudes. Then he talked about salt and light. Then he talked about, so many different things, prayer. But now he comes about how to be generous in a different way. How do we, for instance, develop a generosity of spirit? See, generosity goes beyond money. It comes because a person is generous with their time. They do things for other people. They're always looking for ways to be a help to somebody else. That person is very generous with their time. And so as we look at this, I want us to think of the idea of being generous in spirit. But that's what God really is. God, we may not believe this, but his generosity comes because of his being so gracious to us. Think about it. Christ died when? When we were still ungodly. We're still sinners. Yet Christ died for us because he loved us. He shows us this kind of generosity. God created the world and put everything in it for us. This world is to be used, to be enjoyed. He is so generous with us. And so there comes this generosity of spirit. And he comes down and shows it to us in the area of judgment. Now, he's not telling us not to be judgmental, because there are times we have to be, but he talks about actually our being generous in doing so. In thinking about this, I had this question, I want to read it to you. I wonder what would happen if generosity had to do not with just money we gave, but with respect that we give to other people. To be generous with our respect that we give. If we believe that everyone had a right to be respected, we want to be respected. We want people to respect us. We don't want people to slight us. We don't want the people to just pretend we're not even there. We want to be respected. So as I look at what happens here, there is this whole idea within judgments of being respectful, of being generous, and generous of spirit. Also in the Sermon on the Mount, there's not a whole lot of humor. Now, I hear a preacher from time to time, when he gets up to start his sermon, he always has a little joke to tell. Sometimes I've heard he wish he would get a new joke book, because I've heard most of what he's done. But I know I'm being so old, it doesn't matter, I've heard most of them, right? So as we look at these things and we think about it, there is a joke. For instance, in chapter 7, when it says, talking about when we, well, let's look at the passage. Chapter 7, and we're going to start with the judgment. Second verse. For with what judgment you judge, you will be judged, and with that measure you use, it will be measured back to you. And why do you look at the speck in your brother's eye, but do not consider the plank in your own eye, or beam, or board, or whatever? But whatever is there is so big, I can only see you with one eye, right? Why? And yet I'm going to, with this one eye, I'm going to take the speck out of yours. Specks hurt. We want to get rid of them. But he came back and said, how could you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own eye? Hypocrite! First remove the plank from your own eye, then you will see clearly how to remove the speck from your brother's eye. Don't be the hypocrite. Don't try to find fault. Why is it we find fault with others? Usually it's because we're good at what it is we're finding fault with you about. We look at you and we realize, I could do that so much better. And so we come back, and if you made a mistake or an error, we're really quick to point it out. And sometimes people have not been too nice to us when they did that. And I came across this story, and I think it really helps illustrate it. Matter of fact, it is in the little book by Brother Harris. And he talks about one of his colleagues down at the university. And he said his colleague comes in with a simple question. Who does the monkey girl marry? Okay, who does she marry? The monkey girl. Who does she marry? Well, she marries the alligator man. Now, I haven't lost my sense. But when I was young, and I can't remember back then, but when I was young, we had the circus come to town. And in the circus, when they set up the tents and everything, they had, of course, the big top. And then they had the one over here on the side, which was the freak show. Now in a freak show, you would go in and you would see the little bitty shoes, for instance, where in China they used to wrap, or maybe still do, the little girl's feet so that they don't get bigger. And these little shoes are about that big. Well, obviously the little girl did not grow up where she could walk. She had to be carried. But they thought those little bitty feet were so beautiful. They were so attractive. And so you'd go in the freak show and you would see things like this. And then there would be these different freaks that were in there. And so this, by the way, is a true story. This is not made up. There was a young lady that had blonde hair all over her body, her face, and every place else. There was also a man in the show that had reptilian skin, and he was known as the Alligator Man. And they fell in love, and even though her parents argued and debated whether or not she should marry him, thinking that she was marrying beneath her, they got married. They fell in love and they got married. The question came about, what happens when in this marriage they get an argument? Now I know most of you married couples have never had this problem, but they did. They would get in some arguments and so forth. And sometimes they would get rather heated, to the point that the Alligator Man would say something like, "Why did I ever marry a freak like you?" But then all of a sudden he happened to look in the mirror and realized he's a freak also. Are you ready for this one? All of us are freaks in our own way. We have our problems. We have different things about us that are not always attractive. We don't always act as nice and as kind as we ought to. And yet sometimes we will come back at someone and we'll say, "How could you act like that?" Look in the mirror next time you have that sensation that you want to say something. And remember, you're human too. You're human also. That's generous in spirit. That is being able to turn and look at a person and realize we're alike. We have this. Most of us have times when we find fault with someone and we really get after them. Another colleague that was written up was a man who attended a Christian university, and he was the monitor of chapel. Now, in colleges, used to be at least in Christian colleges, there was chapel every day. And at Lipscomb, for instance, we had assigned seats, and until my wife and I got married, we couldn't sit together. She was down in the B's and I was up in the F's, and so forth. But we had chapel every day. This particular school had 2 chapels every day. And the man said, "I have heard so many different kinds of chapel talks, and some really bad ones. But," he says, "I chose to give the person the benefit of the doubt." The person who wrote that little thing said he could not do that for a long time. He could not bring himself to give people the benefit of the doubt. He always felt and thought the worst. We think the worst. And yet we need to give them the benefit of the doubt. Because we expect that ourselves. We want that. We want someone to give us the benefit of the doubt. Generous in spirit, to be able to do that. Now, in the Sermon on the Mount, some folks have said this next passage is perhaps the weirdest passage of all, because it says, "Don't cast your pearls before swine. Don't give what is holy to dogs, or they will turn on you and rip you to pieces." Now, many commentators have talked about that this is talking about judgment only. And don't throw your pearls down like that. But think about what follows that. "Ask, and it shall be given you. seek and you shall find, knock and the door shall be opened to you, because even though you're evil, you know how to give good gifts. How much more will your Father give good gifts to you? He then says, when your son comes to you and asks you for a fish, you do not give him a snake. The same way your Father will be generous in giving good gifts to you. Supposing, and I really think this is probably true, Jesus is talking about people, the dogs, pigs. He's talking about people because Israel is a captive nation. Israel is a part of the Roman Empire. And in the Roman Empire, for instance, a soldier comes to you, and you're going down the road, and you're Jewish, but he's the Roman soldier, and so he says, carry my load for a mile. And you would find in those roads through Israel, there were mile markers, and that's why. Most people would carry the load that first mile, and then they'd throw it down and say, I've done what I had to. I've done what was required. Of course, we've never done that, have we? We've never said to people, oh, I've done what I had to do. I did what the requirements said. When really we could have done more. And that's what Jesus talked about, didn't he? Instead of just carrying it 1 mile, you're going to carry it 2. And probably say something similar to like, thank you for letting me do that. Goes on thinking about this. Don't give also what is sacred to the Romans. Don't give it to them. Don't give up. Don't also put your allegiance and all of your security in the government. One of the problems that our government is fighting right at the moment is the fact that some people are demanding that they receive a lot of things. And they come to the point to say that the government owes it to them. Whereas we look at generations past and people tried to be self-sufficient. And if they couldn't be, then the neighbors helped. Different people were very, very generous, and they helped. But now we're looking back and we're wanting the government to give us everything. And by doing so, control us, control our lives. And I'm not trying to be anti-government. I'm simply pointing out the fact that God says, depend on me. Don't give it to the government. Don't give it to society. Come back and depend on me. And he does this by demonstrating to us how generous he's been with us, how forgiving he's been to us, how supportive he's been to us, how he has given us all these things that we need. I know there are documents that would say we have life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, but God said it beforehand. That's the reality of what he said to Adam and Eve in the garden. You can have everything here. Just take care of it. There's only one thing you can't have. He was so absolutely generous. Made everything for us to take care of us. So be careful also with your harsh judgments. Be careful with the giving of the benefit of the doubt. Do that. And also find our security with God. If I do that, then I can treat other people as God has treated me. If I can look in the mirror and realize I am frail, I am a sinner, I'm human, but God loves me. How then can I not love you? Instead of being so judgmental, instead of trying to look out and find your problem, your weak point, especially if it's not mine. No. That we realize our generosity of being able to share this with others. Jesus teaches us to use generosity much differently than we often use it. Our generosity is in relation to someone's use of money. Jesus talks to us about generosity and judgment. He comes back and teaches us God's generosity of judgment. It is the foundation for our generosity of judgment. We all have also woundedness, and we have brokenness. Things that we can be very judgmental about. But to realize, to realize that we are made in the image of God, and He, as our Father, is showing us how to be a follower of His. Looking back at chapter 7, mine has a headline up there that says, "Do not judge." But it really is saying, be generous in my judgments. And then starting in verse 7, ask and it will be given to you. Seek and you will find. Knock and it will be open to you. For everyone who asks receives, and he who seeks finds, and to him who knocks it will be opened. And then he uses the illustration of our children. As parents, we are not going to give our child a snake or something that would hurt them. We're not going to put them in a position to be injured. We're going to protect them. We're going to love them. We're going to give them that which is good. That's the kind of generosity to be. It concludes, though, with the difficult problem. How difficult it is to enter by the narrow gate. For wide is the gate and broad is the way that leads to destruction. And there are many that go in by it. Because narrow is the gate and difficult is the way which leads to life. And there are a few who find it. Yes, few who find it. God loves us. Loves you. God sent His Son to show us what generosity really means. That there is this sacrifice to be given. The sacrifice that involves our giving ourselves to others. To give ourselves to God. To rely upon Him. To know that He is going to continue to be as generous now as He was in the beginning. That's what Jesus is saying. Yes, He's talking about judgments. He's talking about all these other sacrifices that are involved. But He is talking about our attitude. He is talking about ourselves and our lives with one another. To be supportive of one another, to be loving of one another, to be forgiving of one another. For God has forgiven you. When you have believed and repented of your sins, confessed Jesus Christ and be buried with Him. And He washes away all of your sins. All the sins you have ever committed to that moment are washed away and gone. That's what He does for us. This is the generosity that He brings to us. Love Him back. Obey Him. And let Him teach you and me how to really be generous. To give our lives for Him, for one another. If you're to be obedient to His invitation, come to the front as we stand and sing.